In 1837, Hans Christian Andersen wrote about a girl who gave up her voice for the chance to be loved. Scholars called it feminine sacrifice. But the real darkness isn't in the fairy tale. Neuroscience has revealed the brain processes romantic rejection through the same circuits as physical pain. That bargain, voice for belonging, isn't a myth. It's playing out in millions of relationships right now. And it always starts with a single, invisible concession. The story always begins with a bargain. In Hans Christian Andersen's 1837 tale, the mermaid's voice is not just her song, it is her selfhood, her only means to be known, to be felt, to exist in the world above. She trades it away for the hope of love, signing a contract that cannot be undone. Scholars have called this the archetype of feminine sacrifice, a girl's silence as the price of belonging, her agency dissolved in the shadow of desire. The witch's deal is absolute, once spoken, no word can return. The mermaid's tongue is cut, her voice bottled, and the world turns quiet around her. For Maya, a young woman whose story echoes through the present, the first moment of self-silencing is almost invisible. It is not a scream, but a held breath, a joke left untold, an opinion swallowed, the smallest part of herself set aside to keep the peace. The silence grows, curling around her like seaweed. She tells herself it is nothing, just a compromise, just for now. But beneath the surface, the contract has already been signed. In the original fairy tale, there is no guarantee of love in return. The mermaid's sacrifice is one-sided, irreversible. Her voice, her power to protest, to ask, to name her longing is gone. What remains is a body shaped for someone else's world, and a silence that deepens with every step. The spiral begins here, with the loss of voice, with the first concession made in the name of love, the fear that speaking might cost everything, that silence might be safer. This is how the story of identity erosion starts, not with a dramatic gesture, but with a quiet, unspoken trade. Fear is not an abstract idea. It is a signal wired into the body, a neural alarm that flares when connection feels threatened. In the brain, the dorsal anterior cingulate cortex, known to neuroscientists as the DACC, lights up when a person is excluded or rejected, registering social pain as real and acute as physical hurt. Laboratory studies using simple games like cyberball have shown that even a few minutes of being left out can trigger this region, flooding the mind with distress. The body cannot distinguish between the ache of a lost limb and the ache of being cast aside. For someone with attachment anxiety, this alarm is set on a hair trigger. Dr. Philip Shaver, a leading expert in adult attachment, describes this profile as a state of relentless vigilance, always scanning for signs of withdrawal, always bracing for loss. The anxious brain is primed to interpret a sigh, a silence, a missed message as evidence that love is slipping away. In this state, the threat of abandonment feels unbearable, and the mind will do almost anything to make it stop. Maya's panic is not a mystery. When her partner grows distant or a conversation turns cold, her chest tightens, her thoughts race, and she feels the urge to say nothing that might upset the balance. Compliance becomes a reflex, not a choice. Research shows that when the DACC is highly reactive, people become less willing to tolerate unfairness or speak up for themselves. Anything is better than risking exclusion. The drive to keep the relationship intact overrides the need for authenticity. In the moment, silence feels safer than honesty, and the cycle of self-suppression deepens. The brain's alarm bells are not easily silenced. They steer behavior toward compliance, even when the cost is the slow erasure of self. Maya rehearses her lines in silence. "I'm fine. It's nothing. Don't worry about me." Each phrase is a shield, built not from honesty, but from the fear that speaking up will push love further away. Psychologist Dr. Dana Jack named this habit self-silencing, and it is far from rare. The self-silencing scale, developed in the early 1990s, measures how often people suppress needs, opinions, or even bits of their personality to avoid conflict or keep a partner close. National survey data show women score, on average, more than 5 points higher than men, with fear of rejection as the most common reason for holding back. The cost is measurable. Carrillo's research found that self-silencing predicts a third more intense conflict and a sharp drop in relational authenticity. Each time Maya bites her tongue, the gap between who she is and who she pretends to be widens. The silence is not just private, it's relational, shaping the rules of closeness, teaching her that her value depends on compliance. Over time, the habit becomes automatic. Needs go unspoken, boundaries blur, and the sense of self begins to erode. Affection, once freely given, becomes a currency with strings attached. Maya notices the pattern. Warmth arrives when she is agreeable, but the cold sets in the moment she disagrees or asserts a need. A missed call goes unreturned. A dinner invitation is ignored. The message is clear. Love is not unconditional, but rationed, measured, and withdrawn as punishment for stepping out of line. Legal policy analyst Dr. Serena Patel describes this as emotional leverage. When affection is used as a bargaining chip, it crosses the line from persuasion to coercion. The law now recognizes tactics like stonewalling, guilt-tripping, and conditional affection as forms of psychological abuse. In one documented case, a partner's silent treatment lasted for days, leaving the other unable to eat or sleep, desperate to apologize for an unknown offense. Maya's world narrows. She learns to anticipate withdrawal, to offer compliance as a shield. The threat of lost connection becomes a tool, a quiet pressure that shapes her silence, teaching her that love must be earned and that her voice is the price. Maya's world contracts by degrees until her sense of self hangs on a single thread, her partner's approval. The shift is not sudden. It unfolds in small, almost invisible exchanges. A canceled plan with friends, a hobby abandoned, a boundary quietly erased. Over time, her own needs become foreign, replaced by the constant question, "Am I enough for them?" The research draws a stark line. In nationally representative surveys, 38% of adults say their self-worth rises and falls with a partner's approval. 30% meet the threshold for codependency, living in a state where their identity is defined by someone else's moods and desires. The boundaries between self and other blur until Maya's reflection seems to vanish. She finds herself isolated, her social circle shrinking, her interests fading into the background. The more she adapts, the more she disappears. What once felt like love now feels like survival, and autonomy is the price. This is the quiet nadir, the point where selfhood is no longer anchored within, but drifts, untethered, in someone else's tide. Dr. Marcia Linehan's dialectical behavior therapy offers a set of skills designed to restore what the mermaid lost. A voice that can name needs, set limits, and withstand the undertow of compliance. At the heart of this method is the Dear Man strategy, a sequence for asking directly, expressing feelings, asserting boundaries, and negotiating without apology. Studies show that adults who complete DBT's interpersonal effectiveness module report a measurable rise in self-esteem, even after years of self-silencing. In clinical trials, participants who practiced Dear Man steps were twice as likely to describe feeling heard by partners compared to those who relied on silence or withdrawal. Dr. Alec Rathis, a leading DBT trainer, guides clients through each step, teaching that boundaries are not walls but bridges back to selfhood. The skill set is practical, repeatable, and grounded in evidence, a way to reclaim agency, one conversation at a time. Maya sits at the kitchen table, hands steady, voice clear. For the first time, she names what she needs without apology. I want to spend Sunday with my sister. I need you to respect that. The words land in the open air, unembellished, unafraid. Her partner pauses, then nods. The old reflex to shrink back, to soften the request, is gone. In a recent pilot study of adults practicing DBT's interpersonal effectiveness skills, 71% said they felt truly heard by their partners after setting boundaries. The sense of erasure that once defined Maya's days begins to fade. With each honest exchange, she regains something essential, a voice that no longer bargains for love, but claims space on its own terms. Even now, compliance and self-silencing masquerade as intimacy in countless relationships. When love demands your voice, it isn't love, it's surrender. Every day, identity dissolves quietly behind closed doors. The real peril isn't losing someone else, it's losing yourself and not even noticing it happen. Thanks for watching.